Welcome to the channel, everybody. So if you have been out there wondering which Glock is right for you, we're gonna go back to a little bit of the roots of this channel, and I'm gonna do my best to describe the most popular variants of Glock to you and show them to you side by side and give you a really good comparison so it'll help you dial in what's gonna work best for you based on your given situation. Specifically, we are gonna talk about the 9mm variants, everything from the 17 down to like the 43 size, because there's just a lot out there in the market today. And these are the videos that I really enjoy because I think you get value out of them. And I really enjoy helping people kind of figure out what's gonna work best for you so you don't waste time and money, end up buying the wrong thing, and then have to trade it in or get something different, because that kind of just sucks. So we're gonna go ahead and kick this off with the first one, which is pretty much the flagship premiere on the Glock offering for duty style pistols. And that is going to be the Glock 17. Glock 17, there are 3 different generations that are currently still available that you can purchase new. This one right here is going to be a Gen 5 MOS version. You can tell because it's got the optic on it. But I do have a stock Gen 3 that we're also gonna look at because there are differences between those generations. But again, the 17 is the kind of flagship duty carry style offering from Glock. It's widely carried by not only military units, but also a ton of modern law enforcement and security people out there around the world today. Now, when it comes down to the size of the 17 right here, you're gonna be looking at a measurement of 7.95 inches in length, 1.34 inches in total width, and a height as it stands on the magazine to the top of the slide at 5.47 inches. Now, there are some differences between the 4th and 5th generation. Those are going to give you the ability to have interchangeable back straps so you can more kind of fit this personally to your hand. They will also have the standard and MOS slide variations. The MOS stands for modular optic system. It will give you the ability to mount varying different optics directly to the slide via a plate system. Now, these are very well suited for not only belt carry outside the waistband, but these are really geared towards kind of duty or tactical carry belts. They're hugely popular in law enforcement, security work, military stuff. They're also very good for home defense purposes out there on the range if you just want to have some fun and doing some really cool training out there should you really want to kind of up your skill level. Now, when it comes to the Generation 5 specifically, we are going to get some options that the Gen 3 and the Gen 4 did not have. Specifically on the Generation 5, we are going to get ambidextrous slide stop and slide release on there. So left-handed people are finally gonna have a fully left-handed operational Glock because the magazine release is swappable in there as well for my lefties. The Generation 5 will also have the enhanced marksman barrel, which has the enhanced polygonal rifling, front and rear serrations on the slide, a single slot accessory rail out front, which is the larger size or the 1913 standardized side. And all generations of Glock are built on their safe action system. And with the Generation 5, you are going to get 3 17-round magazines, or if you're in a restricted state, you will get 3 10-round magazines, I think. So when it comes to Generation 3 and Generation 4, you will only get 2 of those magazines with the pistol. So with Gen 5, you got a little bit more. Well, some of you may be asking, what are the differences between Gen 3, 4, and 5? Because all of those are still currently available for sale as new. This is a great stock example of a Generation 3. No bells, no whistles, it's pretty plain Jane. No front serrations, single accessory slot. You got finger grooves on it. It's got a smaller one-sided magazine release, no back straps, no magwell, none of that stuff. It's really as it comes as you see it right here. Now, there were some special variations, but overall, this Gen 3 19 is a very good example of what a stock Gen 3 style pistol is going to look like. Now, when it comes to the Generation 4, this is a Gen 4 Glock 34, and as you can tell, it's heavily upgraded. So the Generation 4 did give us some differences. One, you can see the big beaver tail right here on the back. Those are the interchangeable back straps. This is also the generation where they introduced the modular optic system right here. That way you can mount different optics on there. Also, this was the first generation where the magazine release right here is changeable from the right to the left. That way left-handed people can use their appropriate thumb and right-handed people can use their appropriate thumb when it comes time to drop the magazine. And then the Generation 5, like this Model 45, gave us a few more options. So you still get those interchangeable back straps. You now get front and rear serrations on there. You get the swappable magazine release, but on the Generation 5, there are some internal changes, but there's also an integrated flared mag well right here. So you can see that's different looking, and that just gives you a little bit more of an easier time trying to exchange those magazines in there. But those are the big overall changes. And then of course, there's some coating, some barrel differences, and then you do get the MOS or modular optic system available as well. But that's really the kind of large gross overall changes from Generation 3, 4, and 5. And next up is the Glock 19. This specifically is a Generation 5. That is a factory gray color on there. But this is basically the little brother to the 17. So if you think about it, if you have kids or brothers and sisters when you were growing up, it's about 2 years younger in size. A little shorter, a little less tall, but the same overall thickness. Now this one is really well suited for concealed carry. It's easy to carry around all day. It weighs less, it's a little bit smaller, but also great for home defense and still really viable for duty belt carry, outside the waistband carry. This Glock 19 style and size pistols have been issued to military units, law enforcement. In fact, I think the 19 was actually the largest selling or most sold pistol in the US for several years running until the 43X finally beat it out, I think last year or the year before. So a great all-around size for concealed carry, open carry, and all of that stuff. But the sizes are different than the 17. So this thing is going to come in at a different length, weight, and height. It's going to be 7.28 inches long, 1.34 inches wide, and 5.04 inches tall with the magazine in there. It's also going to give you a capacity of 15+1 as compared to the 17+1 that the Glock 17 gave you. Current Generation 5 will have front serrations, rear serrations, optic ready models, non-optic ready models, interchangeable back strap, flared mag well, and everything else the Generation 5 17 has, but just in a smaller overall form factor. Another thing you're going to want to keep in mind with the Generation 5 style pistols is they did make some inline changes. As you can see on this Glock 45, it has the front serrations, but on this 19, the front serrations are not there because this was a very early model 19, and then Glock switched things over. The other thing that Glock did change was on the magwell right here. As you can see, that's all in there and good, but on some of the early models, this area right here in the front was cut out. It's called the half moon cutout. So there are a couple of inline changes, but all of the modern Generation 5 will have front serrations, rear serrations, and a fully enclosed pistol grip magwell right there. That cutout is no longer going to be there, but you will still see some of those out there on the used market. The next model we're talking about is the Generation 5 Model 45 right here. And this one is kind of that evolution of the Glock, and this is what's called a hybrid platform because it's got a couple of different things than the standard 19 and 17, 34 from previous years. It's going to have a 17 length grip, but a 19 length slide. That's why it's a hybrid. So it's as long as a 19, but as tall as a Glock 17. And for me, this is kind of that magical mix where it just seems to work for me when it comes to carrying around a Glock all day. This is going to give you that 17+1 capacity. And the Glock 45 for me is one that fits a lot of different roles because it's got that shorter slide and I'm a little bit of a bigger guy. It's really great for concealed carry, but it's also a really great duty carry or outside the waistband or a training pistol or home defense. Really, this is kind of an all-rounder pistol depending on your body structure and size, because the smaller you are, you may not be able to carry something as large as the 45 because of the length of the grip. But for somebody who's, say, like even 5'10" to 6 foot or something like that, even a little bit shorter than that, and maybe just a kind of a standard athletic build, you're probably going to get away with carrying that 45, and it's overall just a great package between size and capacity being that 17+1. Now, if we take a quick look at the 19, the 17, and the 45 side by side, you'll get a really good idea of what those size differences here are. And that will kind of help you make a decision on which one would be maybe for you. And then take into account that my hands are extra large or double XL, depending on what kind of gloves they are. And that again will give you a really good idea of how these things are going to size up. But when it comes to the size dimensions here on the Model 45, it's going to be that 7.28 inches long, 1.34 inches wide, and you're going to have that Glock 17 height, which is going to be 5.47 inches with the magazine inserted. So overall, For me, like I said, just a great size to carry around all day, whether it's on the belt or inside the waistband. And next up is one I actually don't have right now because I borrowed it from a buddy to get some rounds in on it, and that's going to be the Glock Model 47. Again, this was kind of that next evolution of the Glock. I think it came out of a Border Patrol contract, but this meant to kind of really bridge the gap between a 17-19 and a 45 style pistol. So again, this one is going to have that standard frame from the Model 45, which will fit a 19 slide and the Glock 17 magazines, but it's going to come with a different slide that's got a longer dust cover, so it gives you the Glock 17 length barrel, but you can just take a Glock 19 or Glock 45 slide and put it on the Glock 47 frame. So should you want both of those, you can buy a Glock 47 and then buy a Glock 19 slide and effectively have two for the price of like 1.5. So it's going to be dimensionally about the same as a Glock 17. A little bit different when it comes to the front end of that slide because of the difference in the dust cover, but those dimensions are going to be the same as the Glock 17 Generation 5 with these same controls, options, backstrap, MOS system, all that good stuff. And then if you put a 19 slide on it, you're going to have the dimensions of the Glock Model 45 and the same overall options there as well. In all, probably what the Glock should have been from the get-go, because modularity is one of those things that just everyone wants in the market today. However, the 47 is going to come with a couple of less things. I think you get one less backstrap, and then you don't get like the tool and the holder for the backstraps, and I think the MOS plates are a little bit different or something. So you don't seem to get as much when it comes to the Model 47. And next up is the Model 34. So this is the only one I currently have. It's got several upgrades on it, but this is a Generation 4. And this is basically a 17 frame with a little bit of a longer barrel and slide. So you're gonna get all of the same options, whether it's Gen 3, 4, or 5, which you should now know which all those generations have. But it's just gonna be a little bit longer and a little bit heavier. So this comes in almost exactly an inch longer than the Glock 17 does, and that's gonna be at 8.74 inches overall. So it's not a terrible choice, but it's just not a great choice unless you're going to carry this thing outside the waistband or use it in competition or on a duty style belt. But for me, the 34 is kind of just more fit for competition. I really wouldn't want to carry this in a duty belt or something because of all that additional length, because you'd have to come way higher up, about an inch higher like this, to actually draw that thing from a duty belt and then come out and present that pistol. But it seems to be that competition people love it because since it's got a longer slide and barrel, it runs a little bit flatter on the recoil impulse than a Glock 17 does. Overall, not a bad choice, just not the one I go to. But hey, if you want to do competitions or even home defense, the Glock 34 will fit that role. Let's talk about the first micro or slim line that Glock released, and that is going to be the 43 right here. As you can see, that's a very small pistol, but it's so easy to walk around with and carry just everywhere you go. Now, this is kind of a Generation 5, kind of not, people say, but it was Generation 5 when this thing came out. You are going to give up a few things. This is going to have a very slim profile. It's going to be easy to carry. It's like an inch wide right here, as you can see, compared to the size of my finger, but you're going to get a shorter capacity. So you're going to get like 6+1 capacity. You're not going to have front serrations, rear serrations, no optic, no rail out here for an attachment. There are some different versions that are out there now that we'll talk about here in a second. But overall, this thing is really geared solely for concealed carry or for a pocket style pistol. Now, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to run and control on the range due to its size. It's going to be 6.26 inches long, 1.06 inches wide, and 4.25 inches tall, with again that 6-round capacity. But the thing comes in at a weight of only 16 ounces, so again, super easy to carry. And there are a ton of options out there for not only this thing, but for everything else that we're talking about today. And I will link some of my favorite options out there down below. You can get things like magazine extensions, so it's easier to carry, gives you a couple more rounds. But overall, a 100% geared towards concealed carry. Obviously not a duty pistol or something, but still viable for carrying around out there all day. And if you needed something super small and that's all you can afford, it will work for home defense as well, but definitely not a duty sized pistol. But the 43 does have a couple of bigger brothers. The first one being the 43X MOS right here. Now, what this gives us is a really great package. And the Model 48, which is the same exact frame, magazines and everything, it's just about an inch longer. I'll roll some video in of that so you can see it. as well, kind of like the bigger brothers to the 43 series. But the X is going to give us a little bit of a bigger grip, the same length overall, but it gives us a lot more options when it comes to what we can do. As you can see, I've got an optic on here, I've got some better sights. It does have an accessory rail out there so you can run a light on this thing. And overall, the size of this thing, even for extra large or double X size hands, just really does fit quite well. And out there on the range, you can actually run this thing better than most other slimline and micro style pistols because it kind of seems to be that perfect size for a very, very compact and easy to carry around pistol. And when it comes to what we're going to get here, there are several different variations of this one currently out there. You're going to have optics ready, non-optics ready versions that have a silver slide and black frame, completely blacked out models, front serrations, ones with accessory rails out front, and it's going to give you a standard capacity of 10+1. Size-wise, the 43X is going to be 6.5 inches long, 1.1 inches wide, 5.04 inches tall, and the 48 being a little bit longer, coming in at a total length of 7.28 inches. Now, these are honestly two of my absolute favorite carry size pistol because they are just that perfect size, like I said before. They're easy to use, easy to run, and they're not so small that you find it difficult to reach the controls like the slide stop, the magazine release. They're small enough to carry, yet they're large enough to still be very effective, even at distances of 75 and 100 yards out on the range. Next up is one I actually don't have and I've never owned, and that's going to be the Glock 26, because I've always just wondered why, based on all of the other options Glock has and what's currently available with the 43X and the 48 and the 19 and everything, because it's kind of an awkward size. So the Glock 26 has a much stubbier grip on it, a shorter slide, but overall doesn't really do any of those things very well in my opinion. However, the one area that does shine is you can use your Glock 19 and Glock 17 mags in the 26, but if you're carrying around a 26, you're probably not going to be carrying around the larger 19 or 17 magazines. So when I see the 26, I think, why not just carry a 19 or a 43X MOS or a 48? But overall, the 26 is going to give you the same things it would in any of the other generations from 3, 4, and 5. It's 6.42 inches long, 1.26 inches wide, and 4.2 inches tall, weighing 19.4 ounces, and includes 10 round magazines. Again, if you're paying attention to the numbers there, it kind of leads me to think, why not a 43X MOS, 48, or just a 19? Another thing you have to remember is between Gen 3, 4, and 5, there are different calibers. There's 380, there's 45, there's 40 cal, and 10 millimeter. But ultimately, they're going to give you the same options. They just might be slightly different in size. I really hope this helped a lot of you out there kind of make a choice between whether it was a generation or a specific size. Make your choices wisely and don't be afraid to spend some extra time deciding on which one is going to fit your needs best, whether it's concealed carry, home defense, or for a belt mounted setup out there when it comes to a Glock. You keep doing it out on the range. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I will see you all on the next one.